One thing that I have seen online in various Facebook groups and, sometimes I'm on Reddit and I see it in there, is this whole thing about silver and should we invest in silver? And I thought I'd take some time today just to walk you through what the appeal might be, why it has surged, and also answer the questions, should we buy precious metals? Should we invest in silver? Well, let's start with some numbers after I tell you that this episode, and this is investing, is brought to you by the Quick Start Guide to Investing. Learn how to invest simpler, smarter, and sooner. It's my investing book. It's actually a very good book. I'm very proud of it. We put a lot of effort into that. Nick Bradley, who is my co-author, he's got a YouTube channel now. He used to host this podcast, and you can, we'll put a link in the description, show notes below, if you want to check out Nick's podcast. But this whole silver thing, we just need to step back, and often things get talked about more when there has been a run on it. And most investments, most of the time, when you're hearing it out there on the street, you're too late. And in fact, I'm going to show you a diagram that I was just thinking of, investing diagram, and it's got like the investing diagram with different stages. I just thought of this. This one looks like it's, there was a diagram that pretty much showed you when, new money went in. There's 4 phases. I'll just read it just to move on. The accumulation phase. This is the first stage where investors may believe the market has reached its lowest point and begin to buy assets at a low price. The markup phase, at this stage, the market experiences a sustained upward trend and asset prices increase, leading to profit for investors who bought in the accumulation phase. Distribution phase. This phase occurs when market prices reach their peak and investors who profited in the markup phase may begin to sell their assets. Downturn phase. The market begins to decline, leading to losses for investors who hold too long and those who bought at the market's peak. So what generally happens is when you start to have people chatting about stuff like this, and it happens with Bitcoin and it happened with NVIDIA, usually it's too late. I mean, sure, you could jump in and make some money, but usually, everyone made their money 12 months ago, 2 years ago, when no one was talking about this stuff. So that's basically it. I think it's out there receiving full not mainstream, but like in personal finance geek out circles and Facebook groups, it is coming up more and more. Now, is this because something's changed? Well, yeah, a little bit. I mean, silver is used, silver in particularly, it's used in solar, EVs, circuit boards, all that stuff. So there is a legitimate higher demand for silver than there was 10 years ago. That's just a fact. There are other precious metals that we need for solar, EVs, and all that stuff. But for some reason, I don't know why, but silver has got people speaking. There is another part of the internet where I would dare say a little bit more conspiracy theorist, that prepper stuff where you must buy, first it was gold, then it was all Bitcoin, and now the same people, and I know of these people in broader circles. Someone I know's brother is like full-on conspiracy and is like, no, you just got to buy all precious metals, and, how do I set up a self-managed super fund and buy all precious metals? Well, you've got to ask the question, are you investing, are you speculating, or are you just acting out of fear, or are you acting out of greed? Usually, if you're acting out of fear, it doesn't end well. If you're acting out of greed, it doesn't end well. But let's look at some numbers. I'm recording this at the start of September. So far this calendar year, silver has, and I'll read this, I'm just looking at economictimes.com. Experts predict silver will outperform gold in 2025, ending a 4-year trend. Silver's year-to-date gains of 42% already surpassed gold's 36%. Yeah, September 1. So sweet. So we are on the money. This surge is driven by strong industrial demand from sectors like solar and EVs, creating a supply deficit. Analysts suggest silver's undervaluation and gold's overheated market position further supports this forecast. So conversely, gold is at an all-time high, basically. Gold was considered, and this is where it's a little bit weird out there, gold was considered this safe haven where people would put their money in, rough economic times. But we're seeing at the moment all-time market highs on the S&P 500, all-time market highs for the ASX 200, all-time gold highs. They generally would not correlate. So very odd behavior, and I might actually get maybe a global type economist on to talk about that, because I think that's very interesting. So, the conspiracy theorists, they're all into this precious metal stuff now. Forget Bitcoin. And I just want to maybe unpack what I would do when it comes to this stuff. Now, I don't own any silver. I mean, I've got watches. This isn't my good watch. This is my Omega Swatch. It's probably got a little bit of silver in there. I've got a Omega Speedmaster at home. That's probably got real bits of silver. That's basically the only silver I own. I don't own silver inside a portfolio. There might be some indirect exposure through other companies. But what I want to kind of discuss is you've got to work out, are you an investor or are you a trader or are you speculating? Now, I think it's fine if you're either one of them. I'm basically a long-term investor, and I want most of my listeners to be long-term investors. You could trade, you could speculate, that's fine, but I don't think we need to do that with 100% of our portfolio or our retirement savings, because as good as these returns, and I'll actually tell you the 10-year return on silver versus the S&P 500, like as good as the last 6 months has been for silver, that does not mean we sell the house and put everything in silver. It doesn't mean we do it with Bitcoin. It doesn't mean we do it with anything really, because when it comes to our investing, you cannot get around the rule of diversification. You just can't do it. So my encouragement to you would be, if you do want to invest in silver, in gold, in Bitcoin, have some strong guardrails in place in your portfolio. So it could be you might have, I'll make a number up, $100,000 in an online broker or platform. You might say, I'm not putting more than 5% of my money in silver. Or, because it's no different whether it's silver one week or Bitcoin the other week, we just need some guardrails. In fact, there are some portfolios that have gold as a holding. So I've talked before about StockSpot. StockSpot, I think their portfolios, it could be up to 10% in gold in that portfolio for their own reasons. I think Life Sherpa Invest, friend of the show, who I use Life Sherpa Invest disclosure as my own investing. I think there's maybe 5 or 6%. So they hold less than StockSpot, but there is a rationale there. But it goes back to, we're not putting 100% of our money into precious metals. So if you are a long-term investor, you may have a portion of gold, a Bitcoin, insert defensive safe asset here. And weirdly, it's weird with Bitcoin. It's supposed to be this F the system, we're doing things different. It's so crazy. Like when markets tank, Bitcoin tanks as well. It's like, what? No, everyone's supposed to be like, shouldn't correlate to the markets. But anyway, so back to the cricket. With our investing in silver, if you say to yourself, yeah, I will have a small portion, that's fine. But what if you want to be a speculator? What if you want to have a punt? Well, that's also fine, but it still goes back to we don't want to bet the house because if something goes down, we get flushed. Let's have a look here. There's an ETF, and I might share the screen. Here we go. You guys can see that. So this ETF is where is it? Oh, yeah. ETP MAG. So it's a silver ETF. I think it's Global X. You can have a look here. Let's look, last 12 months to start of September, 40%. I'll take that all day long. Thank you. I'll take it. I don't want 100% of my portfolio in that because, wow. But if we go back and have a look at the last 5 to 10 years, 5 years was 9%, 10 years was just under 11%. This is after fees. Let's have a look at this stacked up against the ETF IVV, which is just the S&P 500. It's a BlackRock ETF. 10 years, 15%. 5 years, 17%. So when we have a look, 9% silver versus 17% S&P 500, 11% silver, 10 years, 15% S&P 500. Sure, the last 12 months, it's only, it's funny when you say that, only 20% the S&P 500, where silver is 40. But it goes back to, if you are an investor, you're not looking at short-term history. You're stepping back and saying, I invest in the long term for long-term growth. I honestly, I didn't read the 3-year returns because I think if you're a long-term investor, it doesn't matter. Sure, if you're a bit of a speculator, you might do some swing trading over the weeks and the months. Again, we're not doing it with all our money. We might just be a small 5%, 3% of our portfolio. Sure, you're going to be looking at some shorter term data, even intraday trading, but you've got to work out, are you an investor or are you a speculator? So when I look at historical returns to see what a portfolio is done, it's not to say that it's going to continue to do that. I'm just looking at 5 to 10 myself. So the thing is, when it comes to your investing, and I'll finish on this, if you want to invest in precious metals, silver, gold, Bitcoin, titanium, insert precious metal here, uranium, all that stuff, as opposed to investing in a bread and butter S&P 500, ASX 200, a one-stop shop portfolio that is well diversified, I'll leave you with this. If you invest outside the norm, you're going to get an outside the norm result, good or bad. I don't want to take that risk with 100% of my portfolio. So put some guardrails in place, have a cold shower, and if you are, and I don't know if I would call it investing. So I've got Bitcoin, right, in my self-managed super fund. I would not say I invest in Bitcoin. I would say I hold Bitcoin. Because for me, an investment increases in value and produces an income. So gold may increase in value, doesn't produce an income. Silver may increase in value, doesn't produce an income. Bitcoin may increase in value, doesn't produce an income. If you invest outside of the norm, you will get an outside of the norm result. It could be good or bad. I've kind of decided and resolved in my life that I'm happy with market returns I invest for the long term. Sure, I've got allocations to Bitcoin and I don't own any silver. I've got gold in a portfolio. I've got some gold coins at home, but I don't get FOMO. I don't try and chase short-term returns because everyone's talking about it. And the thing is, if everyone's talking about it now, you're too late. My name's Glen James. If you've found this useful, please send it to a friend or family member. Let me know in the comments below, what do you invest in that's outside the norm? Okay, if you invest outside the norm, you're going to get an outside of the norm result, good or bad. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, the publisher of this podcast, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds Financial Services Licence 451289. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the host or the publisher or their respective license holders.